So I went back and I pulled some data starting in the year 2000. So we're 25 years into this data. I looked at every single campus, and you have the data file in front of you, this larger spreadsheet. I highlighted the numbers that are represented up here on the screen as well. So when we're looking at the years 2000 to 2010, what I did is I took every one of the elementaries that was listed there. I did pull Guadalupe out just simply because it didn't run the course of those years. But what you see here is the highest enrollment number for each one of those campuses in any one of those given years. And when you look at those numbers, they are also within the same range as you look at those numbers from year to year. So quite simply, we start with Allo at 554 students, Chandler at 641, and we go all the way down. I separated F.W. Gross Elementary, which had 505 students at the time in any one of those given years, and Mission Valley, which had 224 at its peak enrollment, mostly because F.W. Gross transitioned into the ECC campus, and Mission Valley is basically an anomaly. So what do we see here? In all those years, we had 2 campuses that were at 400 plus students. We had 7 campuses that were at 500 plus students, and we had 5 campuses that were over 600 students in any given year. So when we start talking about small schools, I'm going back 25 years to see what has the pattern been since then. So I'm going to transition now into the next sort of 15 years from 2011 to 2026. Again, you see every single one of the campuses, and you see the enrollment that is at its peak. Again, those numbers are within range. Here we have 13 campuses. One of those campuses was at 400 plus. 11 campuses were at 500 plus, and 1 campus was at 600 plus within those date ranges. So when we start talking about school size projections in this bond, one of the concerns has been about the size of schools. So what I did is I took our elementary students. We have 5,982 students, which is down from, we're down 1,888 students in the last 10 years. That number does not represent ECC. So I'm looking only at elementary school students. Then I took 12 elementary schools. I'm taking ECC off of that calculation. Plus, I took out Shields and O'Connor as part of our right sizing. So we currently have 15 elementary schools. If we take those 3 schools off, we're at 12 elementary schools. If I take the 5,982 and I divide it by 12, we're running an average of 498 students, which is in the 400 range, which was way lower than the majority of our 500 and 600 range campuses that we saw in the past 25 years. So I take it a step further. So I'm looking now at school size, and what you'll see across the top is I have pre-K at 22 students, kindergarten at 22 students, first grade at 22, second at 22, third, fourth at 22, and fifth grade at 25 students. Why? We have a 22-to-1 ratio in pre-K through fourth grade, so that's our cap. And then in fifth grade, we have a local, unstated 25 cap rule at fifth grade. So then I said, if we take 2 teachers per grade level, that's 44 students across the board up to fourth grade, and 50 students at fifth grade, which gives us 314 students. 314. So if I take the 5,982 and divide it by 314, it would take 19 elementary schools to house all those students. If I took the 5,982 and I divided it by 400 students, which is the range that is being proposed. It would take 15 full elementary schools in order to house all those students. So then I looked at the next row and said, if we take 3 teachers per grade at 66 across the board, 75 at 5th grade, we're running at 471 students, which is right with the average that we talked about a while ago, dividing the number of students, 5,982, by our 12 campuses takes us right in that range. Now we go 4 teachers per grade level. You're talking about 88 students all the way up to 100 at 5th grade, and it bumps us up to 628. We do have Vickers Elementary that is right over 600 students, and we're running about 4 teachers per grade level there. So why do I say all this? When we look at the current numbers, what we're saying is that we're really staying within the range of the 400 that we're talking about here in the 12 proposed elementary schools, right-sizing Shields and O'Connor. So questions about any of that? Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment on this sheet here.
Yes,
You're
ma'am.
showing for 2025, 2026, we have 11 schools under 400 or under, and only 3 schools at 500 and more.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
So we have multiple campuses that have 300 students. Yes.
And so my next question would be, what would these numbers look like had we done a rezoning or and attendance with that group?
It doesn't change the
and
numbers
changing it?
because the numbers are still going to be the same. What it does is it distributes those students to different campuses, but we still have the same number of students. Yes, ma'am.
Looking at some of these numbers, like Chandler dropped, I mean, went up, I guess, almost 80 one year and then dropped back down almost 140. What, do we know why some of that happens?
I don't. I don't know. I wasn't here at the time. Would you mind coming to the mic, Ms. Shostak?
I guess I was thinking, are these anything that might affect us in the future?
So we had the conversation previously about the drop in those enrollment numbers, almost 2,000 students, and we know, we've looked at the data, our birth rates are dropping. And so we have fewer students that are in school starting 5-year-olds up.
I'm looking at the year that Chandler dropped. I believe that was a year where boundary lines were redrawn, and there were some apartment complexes that had been in Chandler's boundary lines that were moved into another campus.
Okay,
I think that's what resulted in that large drop.
That makes sense.
that makes sense. What about the pre-K? Do all of these include pre-K? Because we haven't always had pre-K.
Yes.
But these all do. Okay.
All numbers include pre-K.
Okay.
This is total enrollment. Even if it's half day, they're included there. Okay. If there are no questions, I basically wanted to share information about school size, knowing that that had been a concern that was brought up.
So essentially, even with the proposal, we're going to operate within the same range that we've been operating in terms of enrollment at elementary campuses.
The last 25 years, yes. Actually, it's going to be lower than where we've been. We've been at 500 plus, 600 plus.
Thank you.